Hi, I am today's host, Michelle D. Burnett, for the Red Hot News. We are so excited for you to join us today on our audio broadcast. And let me just tell you a little bit about the Red Hot News. The Red Hot News is the official news broadcast of DBC offices. We provide you with a comprehensive, holistic view of life as a business owner. It will include audio and video podcasting about your business, health, financial status, spiritual, and even more. And today we are so excited to have a guest that we had before, but she has so much information. We had to have her come back. Today we'd like to welcome again Stephanie L. Reynolds of Dreamcatcher Solutions, LLC, and Stephanie's topic today, we'll be talking about podcasting, the 4 tips on how to have an effective podcast. Let's welcome Stephanie L. Reynolds.
Thank you so much for having me again, Michelle. It's always a pleasure and an honor to come on and be a part of the Red Hot News.
Yes, so let's begin with our questions. I know our listening audience is really, really excited. So tell us, what is a podcast and what types of podcasts are there?
Well, the podcast, I think, is a very effective tool for people, for entrepreneurs, and people who are in any type of field where they're trying to offer some type of education, some type of personal development. It's a great opportunity for authors in terms of getting their books out. Basically, what a podcast is either audio or video, and it's basically just this new wave of radio where anyone can come on and be able to have a show. And so that show, again, could be audio or it could be visual, but they're able to go onto online platforms, social media platforms, and basically be able to do what it used to be only you could do if you had your own radio show or if you were on a national television platform. So it's a great way for people to get their message out, to get their view out. And it's really the wave of the future. It's a great time, especially considering what we're going through right now, with everyone having limited access to clients and to people in general. This is a great way to be able to have a far-reaching audience without having to pay for it, really. The great thing about podcasting is that you can do it for free on any of these online platforms.
So if a person is new, what is the best way to get started on doing a podcast?
Well, that all depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So, if you're trying to accomplish something where you're trying to become like a thought leader in your field, if you're trying to really set yourself up as being um, a thought leader in what it is that you're doing, I think the best way to go is doing video and audio. But again, it just all depends on what your individual goals are, and what your comfortability level is. Some people don't like to be seen, so they prefer to do the audio. Some people love to be able to show their face and make that more of a personal connection because you're able to see them, so they prefer the video. Some like both. Now a lot of national radio stations, they do both. So you hear them on the radio, but they also stream live with video so that you can actually see them. So it really just kind of depends on the individual, what they're wanting to do ultimately, and how comfortable they are doing it.
Okay, I remember you doing a podcast workshop at DBC offices. And
hmm
I wanted to know, could you kind of go over for people that weren't there that may want to start their podcast? Because remember, we want to do the 4 tips on, doing an effective podcast. You talked a little bit about initial planning, show distribution. So can you hit those 4 tips for a person that has never done a podcast, or if they're rebranding or they're restarting a podcast that they had not done before, how to be effective?
Okay, and this is going to be obviously a much more succinct overview of it. If you're interested in getting the whole rundown, then I would definitely encourage you to log on and get one of our workshops, one of our maximized workshops, so that you can get the full rundown of everything, but in a more succinct way, the first thing is your initial planning. So again, that's what is your goal? What is your why? What are you trying to accomplish? Because that's ultimately going to serve as your anchor as you move forward. So you really have to decide what it is that you're wanting to put out to the world. What are you wanting them to get from it? What are you wanting them to take away? And then let that be your starting point for planning. The next thing is really just determining what's going to be the best route for you. How comfortable are you being seen? Your actual face. Are you comfortable going live, or would you prefer it to be recorded and you're able to edit it and have a little bit more control over what you're putting out? And so that's the other part, is just kind of determining how comfortable you are and what exactly you want to do. And then the next thing is doing your research. So you want to make sure that you're researching the best platform based on what your goals are, based on what your purpose is for the podcast. And so you want to research and see what's going to be the best platform for you. We talked about some of the social media platforms, which are free. And then for audio, they do have some paid options that you can use, where they basically do the work for you, especially if you're not that familiar and comfortable with technology. They have a lot of different companies that you can use that basically do all of the work for you, and give you your own studio and back office and everything, so that you don't have to do some of the more tedious tech work behind the scenes. And then the biggest thing is really planning out your content. Um, Anybody can do a podcast, but not everyone is successful at it. So you want to put yourself in a position where you're not just talking just to talk, but you're talking with purpose, and you're talking knowledgeably about whatever it is that your topic is. So you want to plan that out. What does it look like? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to inform? Are you trying to educate? Are you trying to bring levity and you want it to be more comical? Are you just trying to be more relational? Do you want it to be more of like a talk show where you're interviewing hosts? Are you going to do it by yourself? All of those things are things that you need to figure out before you start podcasting, because the possibilities are endless. But because they're endless, you want to be very targeted in what you do, so that you can be effective and you're hitting your target market, and you're finding your niche. Not everybody does really well interviewing. Some people are better just talking on their own. Some people are better having a co-host. So really just figuring out what is your strong point, and then building it around that.
Well, that's a very good start. So, if a person is interested in starting a podcast, what type of equipment will they need and where should they do it at?
Well, that again depends on what way you're gonna go. If you're gonna go with audio, then you can get, again, we talked about some of these other third-party sources that will allow you to do it straight from your phone. There's also some free programs that allow you to record, like Audacity is one of them. But there's some other ones that you can use. That's where the research comes in. But then you can also, if you're doing video, you can do that with your phone. You'd need a ring light so that it looks good. You want to have your messaging in the back, so some type of banner or a really nice background, so that you're presenting it in a excellent way. And then I also know DBC. I've done my podcast at you all's office. You all have a great podcast room for people who maybe don't have all the bells and whistles and can't afford it and don't want to make the investment in it up front, because maybe they don't know how it's going to go. They don't feel that comfortable with it. They want to kind of do some test runs first. I would recommend renting out your room for a certain period of time until you get the hang of it. Feel like this is something you really want to do and are willing then to make the investment into the equipment.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Stephanie. We do have a podcast room at DBC offices for those that are interested, and they can go to our website. That will be in the link below to learn more information about that and the podcast printing options that go along with it, that go along with your actual podcast, especially if you're doing video. Um, Another question in which we had was, do you currently have a podcast, and can you tell us about your podcast?
I do. I'm actually in the process of revamping it, and I'm really excited about it because The great thing about podcasts is they're constantly evolving. You can constantly make the necessary changes. I mean, we talked about this in our last interview about really using this time during this stay-at-home order to reevaluate, redo some things, and come back bigger and better. And so that's what I've been doing during my time is revamping my podcast and really coming up with some ways to make it more effective and more targeted to where I'm trying to move now in terms of my business. So um, my podcast, you can get it on any of my social media platforms. So my Live the Maximized Life is my Instagram, and then Stephanie L. Reynolds. You can find me on Facebook there. And then I'm in the process now of calling. It's going to be called Maximize Live. And what it is, it's really about personal development. It's really about encouraging, empowering, uplifting, and then on top of that, giving some very practical advice in terms of how to just live your best life. You're only as good of a businesswoman or businessman, as a CEO, as a podcaster and author, as you are a person. So we want to kind of do that inside out type development where um, what you're putting on the outside is reflecting the wholeness that you are on the inside. So I'm really excited about merging my two brands, my personal development brand and then my Maximize business development brand into this holistic podcast, really that deals with every aspect of your life.
Okay, that's great. Can you tell us if a person wants to start a podcast and they're not sure, do you provide that as a service?
Well, I do provide consulting services, and then of course I do the Maximize workshops, and I'm in the process of putting those online so that anyone can go on and be able to download that and get all the information that you would get at one of my workshops, as well as if you wanted to have me come in and host a workshop for you. All that information is available on my site, and then I also do consulting work where I could sit down with you, tell me what your goals are, tell me what you're trying to do, and we can come up with an effective plan specific to your goals for you to be able to get that going.
Okay, that's great. So is there any final thoughts that you like to add for our listening
Yeah,
audience today?
I would say just don't be intimidated by it. And know that your niche is your niche, your audience is your audience. Who's called to you is called to you. So don't be intimidated by the fact that there's so many people out there, or just by the technology that's involved in doing it. If this is something that you feel like you should do, I definitely encourage you to give it a try. And, again, there's a lot of ways that you can do that without having to make a huge investment up front. But I definitely think it's a great way to position yourself in your field as being a leader, as being a thought leader, and then also just being able to get your message out to a larger audience of people.
Well, thank you for all of your insight for podcasting, and we're really excited. And I'll make sure that we include those links so people can go on and learn more about you at Dreamcatchers if they want to start a podcast and they want to work with you in your company, or if they want to go to DBC offices and they want to look at the podcasting rooms or the podcasting print packages that are offered. And we want to thank you for being our guest today. So we like to end with a quote. And today's quote is, every problem is a gift. Gift. Without problems, we would not grow. And that's by Anthony Robbins. I am today's host, Michelle D. Burnett from the Red Hot News. And thank you for tuning in with hot news that you can use.